Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. In the first story, our OP worked as a snowblower and encountered an awful customer whom he eventually taught a lesson. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Dad messed up Entitled Idiot's winter. First, some backstory. My dad works with plowing the snow on communal roads during winters. In our country, all roads have to be drivable by 7 a.m. and have to be continuously plowed during the day. So he'd work his normal shifts as well as during the night. The plower he uses is huge, and he can kinda direct where the snow would land on the sides of the roads to avoid obstructing things like mailboxes and trash cans, etc. Anyway, this winter had extreme snowfall, and everyone in the municipal that plowed snow worked overtime. So as my dad's driving along his normal route during the day/early evening, a guy standing in his driveway and signaling for him to stop. Naturally, he does, and goes on to hear what the dude has to say. Apparently, he was pissed because my dad had left a small line of snow on his driveway that was leading directly to the communal road. His driveway wasn't really a driveway, more of a small parking lot that was connected to the road, about 15 by 15 meters of asphalt. No matter how much my dad tried to avoid getting snow on there, it was basically impossible. This dude yelled at him for about 10 minutes until my dad had enough and drove away. So for the next couple of days, the dude and his wife would stand by the edge of the road every time he drove past, and he had to wait for them to go inside until he could continue plowing. And then my dad had enough. He'd been trying to redirect the snow from landing on this guy's parking lot, but he saw that that wasn't good enough. So for the rest of the winter, whenever he was driving past their house during the night, he would try to get as much possible snow into his parking lot as possible. Due to the heavy snowfall, there was a lot of snow covering it. The guy then sent a complaint, but as my dad didn't violate a single law, his boss didn't care and they just had a good laugh. In the complaint, the guy said that he had to wake up 30 minutes earlier than usual to shovel the snow in freezing cold and pitch darkness for the entire winter. And our second story. Because I said so, that's why. And no phones at work. Okay, Jane, you go cool off. Obligatory, this was a few years ago, but still a good story. So I used to be a store manager for a frozen yogurt shop that's part of a larger chain owned by a family. Not Menchie's big, but still more than a few stores. As such, I worked in a store where we had a large walk-in fridge and freezer. We also had a district manager named Jane who had a penchant for ridiculous rules and stern punishments for even the smallest perceived infractions. Once the power went out to the plaza I worked in, and as such we had to turn people away because we couldn't, dispense product or take payments, I was almost fired for closing in the middle of a workday for that one, and was shouted at in front of customers and called incompetent, even with documented proof of being unable to remain open. We also worked alone, which will be important. Anyway, you've got your picture of Jane. She was a joy and a delight. So one day I was working away before unlocking the doors and went to grab some yogurt from the freezer. When the door closed behind me, I pulled the handle, nothing. Hit the plunger, nothing. Locked in the walk-in freezer in jeans and a t-shirt. I luckily had my cell phone in my pocket and was able to call a coworker to come let me out. Called Jane, obviously shaken up, and was told, well, don't let the door close. I'll deal with it later. Later turned into 4 months of bothering her because, a walk-in freezer that locks from the outside is very dangerous when you work alone. We found solutions to try to keep from anyone being stuck, including a sign on the door to never enter without a jacket and your cell phone in case it managed to fall shut. We had 5 more cases of door props slipping and staff becoming stuck. The freezer was very large and the door very heavy before Jane paid a visit to the store. The first thing she did was tear down the sign because it's an eyesore and start shouting that we should never have our phones while working for any reason. She left, still no fix in sight, promising to cut hours of anyone caught with phones, even in the freezer. Fast forward another month, and one more incident of someone getting locked in, and this time having to be rescued by a customer who she screamed the backroom lock code to. Jane arrives shortly after opening one day to discuss the freezer, and immediately tears down the new safety sign and starts telling me about how I need to start listening to her and stop being so stubborn. While we're having it out in the back room, the front bell rings to let me know there's a customer, Jane tells me to serve them and that she'll stay and finish up some paperwork before leaving. She makes me show her that my cell phone is in my backpack because phones are against company policy, you know that. I leave to serve the customers, who turned out were a softball team on their way to a tournament. About 25 minutes later, I was finished with them and was about to quickly mop the tables when I realized I hadn't seen Jane leave, and she usually didn't stay long. I finished cleaning up and doing some restocking before I heard it. Unmistakable shouting and banging on a door coming from the back room. I put my ear to the door, turned up the store music a few notches, and gave the bathrooms a quick refresh before opening the freezer to find Jane shaking with a rage/fear combination I'd never seen before and putting on my best shocked face. "Oh dear, you really can't let that door close. How long were you in there? I wish you'd had your phone so you could call me." And our next story. "Yeah, sure, boss." So I'm an intern in a company, and as you may guess, I have to do most of the dirty work. One day my boss tells me to go replace some computer monitors and store the old ones in a small warehouse we have. I replace the stuff, and as I get to the warehouse, I notice the only free spot I have for the monitors is the top shelf, which I can't reach on my own, even more carrying a 5 to 8 kilogram monitor. I tell him that I can't reach it, and he tells me to get the ladder to get up there, and as I'm telling him I still wouldn't be able to reach it, he tells me, "I don't care how you do it, just do it." So I go back, and as I prepare to go up the ladder, I notice it has some parts broken. I go to the office again to tell him that the ladder's broken, and he just screams at me, "I don't care, just put everything back where it was when you finish," without even hearing me. At this point, I'm pissed. I could climb onto a lower shelf and put small stuff on the top one, so I put all the mouse pads on the top shelf, knowing he'd have to use the ladder to go get them, and I got placed to the monitors, playing Tetris helped, by putting them in a way where you kinda had to take them all at the same time or meticulously take each one, and I also put the ladder back where it was. Some days later, everyone quiet when suddenly you just hear a loud banging. He went to get the mouse pads, broke the ladder, and when falling, he grabbed onto a monitor, bringing that and 2 others down to the ground. I never felt so good. He probably won't get fired because he's been here for long. And our last story. The Crooked Attorney. My boyfriend moved to New York City from a state in the South. Freshly out of law school and riddled with student debt, he found a low-paying personal injury firm and settled in. Since money was tight, he found a roommate on Craigslist named Julie. Julie is a feisty Latina, and my boyfriend is pretty much Wonder Bread, but they hit it off very well. My boyfriend would go to Julie's job after work, she was a bartender, and they developed a very strong friendship. During this time, Julie meets a server, Luis. They hit it off and begin dating. My boyfriend clicks with Luis and they become a trio. Drunken tequila nights, peeing on the subway platform, my boyfriend being taken to Latin clubs, they become the best of friends. Something that will play a role in this tale is that both Julie and Luis and their families are in the USA undocumented. Please don't turn this into a political post. So Julie and Luis are getting serious but don't have a lot of money, so they move in with Luis's elderly parents. My boyfriend finds another place to live, and they all still keep in touch. During all of this, Luis's dad had suffered an injury at work. He lost part of his finger and had hired a personal injury attorney, aka POS. Apparently, he was supposed to receive a $100,000 settlement, but some time had passed and still no update. Julie, since neither Luis or his dad spoke English, called Luis's father's insurance and asked about the status of the settlement. The insurance said, "Oh, the settlement's already been paid out." That's when Julie called my boyfriend, freaking out. Apparently, this personal injury attorney had a history of being an ambulance chaser and sought out clients here illegally. He held that over them and took their settlement money by forging documents, while there had been reports the guy had been getting away with fraud for years. So my boyfriend tells Julie to tell the POS that she knows what's up. Apparently, this guy thought his clients were too stupid to seek retribution. POS told Julie that he would return the money if she dropped her complaint against him. My boyfriend was livid at this POS for taking advantage of immigrants and decided to get payback. He told Julie to record all of her conversations with him and keep records of any type of contact. Apparently, POS was using other embezzled funds to hush clients like Julie. Julie met up with him a few times, always recording interactions and getting money from him. With evidence in place, my boyfriend took all the evidence to the New York State Supreme Court, who investigates, and told them that he was representing Luis's dad. Apparently, reports had happened for years, but nobody ever gave a damn until an attorney became involved. It turned out that POS had stolen over $400,000 from clients for years. It was a long trial, with my boyfriend representing Luis's dad and he having to testify. POS knew my boyfriend had reported him and would glare at him from the stand. Long story short, POS pled guilty to charges of identity theft, fraud, grand larceny, etc. He was stripped of his ability to practice law and was sentenced to 7 years in jail. Luis's dad gave my boyfriend $1,000. He worked pro bono for them, and now my boyfriend is the godfather to Julie and Luis's son. Luis's dad moved back to his native country and bought a beautiful house. All of POS's victims got their money back through the lawyer fund for client protection. I love when people successfully use the law for justice the way it was intended, not as something to exploit for personal gain. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.